small business owners and, to empower, members of our network, which is really within the Redeemed Christian Church of God and within the African population, to develop entrepreneurial skills, to build their businesses, and to grow wealth, intergenerational wealth. And we have many platforms to which we facilitate our vision, and one of those platforms is this webinar series. And today we have, a very interesting, exciting, and very topical, theme for our webinar, which is accessing access to capital. Whether you are a new business or you are an existing business, access to capital readiness is really one of the major challenges that most businesses encounter. And today, we have, a very informative presentation prepared for you that's going to be delivered by the Chief Operating Officer of Reseed, Pastor Titi Kile. So I want to encourage you to please, participate spirit, soul, and body in this webinar. Be here fully and take advantage of all the information that's going to be presented to you. The Bible tells us in Hosea 4:6 that my people perish, my people are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Today, the currency that we're presenting to you is knowledge. And, it's my prayer that we'll all take advantage, and that beyond just listening to this webinar, we'll take the next step. Pastor Titi is going to talk about, next steps, because this is really just an introduction. In order for us to fully benefit, we have to take the next step. And so she'll be talking about the next step at the end of our presentation. So once again, I want to welcome you. Thank you. I want to encourage you to please be a part of Reseed. You will also get information about how you can become a member of Reseed. Reseed is actually a membership network, and membership gives you a lot of benefits. For example, I can see in the chat, somebody's already asking about getting the slides. Well, the slides are given to members, right? So, and it doesn't cost you anything to become a Reseed member. All you need to do is to just register. So I want to encourage us to be a part of Reseed, and make sure that you partake of the benefits and that Reseed offers. So without wasting too much time, I want us to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to call on our administrator, Sister Shebi, to introduce Pastor Titi so that we can go ahead and get started. Sister Shebi, over to you.
Yes, welcome again, everyone. And like Pastor Yinka said, I'll be introducing our guest speaker for today. Her name is Titi Kile. Titi Kile has a passion for connecting with people. She has dedicated her entire career to financially empowering people, especially women and undeserved communities. Her career spans different aspects of banking and consulting work. She launched her own boutique consulting business, serving the Bay Area businesses with loan readiness consultation. In her role, she serves as Chief Program Officer and previously served as Director of Business Consulting and Lending of one of the top community financial institutions in Northern California, where she manages a team that oversees community partnership engagement with cities, approves credit disbursement, nurture business client portfolio in the millions of dollars, develops a robust consulting program. She is also a board member here at the Redeemer Center for Entrepreneurship Development, which is what RESA stands for. She loves Jesus. She's passionate about strategic kingdom influence in circular places. She pastors alongside her wonderful husband at Jesus House Solano in California. She is a speaker of the word and practical business principles. She is intentional about building legacy culture wherever she goes. So please, I encourage all of us, join me to welcome our amazing, awesome, blessed speaker, Titi Kile.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen today. It's a privilege to be with you all. Give me a second as this pops up properly. Perfect. Okay. Thank you again for, I just want to first thank the Lord for the opportunity for us to be able to just gather together. And, you know, you set a date and and God makes it possible. So I just want to acknowledge that, and also acknowledge the leadership of Reset, the visionaries behind it, Pastor Fidel, Pastor Leke, and now under the leadership of Pastor Yinka. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today, and for you all that have joined, taking the time out to be part of this today. And I'm sure, you know, this is something that's important to you. And so I also want to appreciate you for making the time to be here today. Before I get started, as was already shared in terms of my background, this is a topic that's very dear to my heart, you know, and I live and breathe this every day, my day-to-day job. And I also believe it's also an important information that we all should be aware of, and understand how we can be able to access these resources that are available out there. And also use it to create wealth in the long term. And think about what the Jews have done, think about so many other communities that are working together. So let's think strategically. And as you listen today, a few things that I just want to kind of remind us is that we will have opportunity for questions. And so you can start jotting down your questions. And you'll also we'll have it interactive. There's like 3 parts of this, and there'll be things that would prompt you to think and also create opportunity for us to interact. So I encourage you to listen, to ask questions, and to connect in. And then also keep yourself muted as much as possible. It helps all of us to just kind of have a less distraction as we go through this topic. Before we get started, I would love for us to do a quick poll. And that poll will have our admin pop it up. And that would just give us a sense. The reason for the poll is to give us a sense of who's in the room today, what are some of the needs that are represented. There are 3 questions, and so if you can please answer those questions, would be great. I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah, okay. There are 3 questions. Thank you all as you're completing it. And also as a reminder, you can still invite people that you think should be on this platform today that are not here. You can send them a quick reminder so they can pop on. Thank you all. See it's coming through. Give it a few more minutes for everybody else to chime in. Okay. Coming through, please. A few more people that needs to complete it, so the next minute we'll wrap it up. Okay. All right, so based on the poll here, I see that we have less than a year. We have about 34% of folks that are in the room been in business for less than a year. And majority have been in business for 2 years or more, about 55%. So that's helpful. It's helpful to know because time in business matters a lot in terms of the kind of capital that might be available. So it looks like we have a majority that are over 2 years. And then 1 to 2 years, about 10%. And then have you ever received a business loan? 83% says no, 17% says yes. So that also tells us something that some folks, they've been in business for a long period of time and probably have self-funded their capital, getting capital and running the business through their own personal finances. The last question was, what do you need for the capital for? It says starting business, 47%, 63% says expanding their business, and then 13% say pay off their debt. But significant amounts are looking to expand their business, and a few looking to start. And there's a possibility that the same people that are trying to expand might also be starting multiple businesses too. Knowing the community that we're in, we tend to have serial entrepreneurs that could have 5, 6 different businesses running at the same time. So this is helpful. It's helpful for me as I kind of go through this to know who's in the room, to know what's represented, and potentially your needs. Because at the end of the day, we want you to leave here with something that's relevant to you, that matters to you, and that you can take some next steps on it. So I'm going to jump into the agenda. And we have, like I said, we have a good chunk of time so that we can take questions. So thank you again for completing this. This poll we can close the poll out. Thank you. Oh, did I share it? I think let me share it so you can see it. Can you all see the results on the screen? Okay, thank you. Awesome. All right. Okay, so we're gonna move forward. Today we'll be talking about just understanding your business needs. So part of getting into capital, it's important to know why you need capital. And it's important to be clear about why you need it. We'll also talk about some terminologies. Since a lot of folks that are here have been running their business for a while, but probably have not gone through a business loan experience, or maybe if they have, they've not really, hasn't been something that has yielded a business loan for them. So we're talking about what lenders look for, what's important in terms of their financing, because that's one of the top ways that people finance capital. And then what are the different options of types of loans, the types of lenders and what to look for, and how to get prepared. And then we'll go into equity financing to wrap it up. So first one was, why do businesses borrow? Some of you have kind of shared a few of those reasons why, but that why is so important that you have a very clear why you need to borrow. And startup, is one, cash flow needs are one, increased demands are one, capital purchases, expansion. Those are all valid reasons that you can start a business, that you might need to borrow. But one reason that might not be, that's not on this list, that you want to be conscious and be very concerned of using money to do it, is if the business is going downward trend and you'll keep trying to use borrowed money to shore it up. That tends to be something that you have to be very, very, take a step back and take a look, because lenders most likely do not want to fund that unless there is a strategy that you're putting in place to make a big shift, like you're bringing a new product in or certain things in to change the direction of that business. But otherwise, lenders, they finance capital for needs that are going to see the growth of the business. So if you can't prove and you can't show that the business, what you're going to use the money for would improve the business, then borrowing probably is not the right type of thing to do. It might be better to self-finance it or to find other strategies to do it. So that's one. The why is very important. It's very important to ground yourself in the why before you go on the journey. Next is to really look at the type of borrowing that's important that people tend to run into. One is, as I mentioned, and I asked in the question, in the poll, was a type of, what stage of business are you in? If you started, like, time in business matters, and they have sometimes impact the kind of borrowing that you might need. If you're new in the business, startup loans tend to be very hard to get. Nobody wants to take a risk on a new business. Why is that? Because they don't know your track record. They don't see that you can do it. Entrepreneurs, they have to understand these two things. There's two sides of it. Entrepreneurs have this very deep sense of, like, assurance and deep sense of of confidence that sometimes lenders would look and say, no, this doesn't, I don't trust that you can really deliver unless you've shown them something, like, concrete wise, because there's really a bigger passion that most entrepreneurs come to the table with. And sometimes it's not grounded in fact. Sometimes it's just grounded in something they know inside of them. And so you have to pair that confidence with some facts. So with startup capital, it's not that it's not possible to get, it's just that it's a little bit more difficult to get. And we'll talk about some of the different types of loans that you can use to get that. And I know, knowing in the room that there are people that want to start a business, there are people that want to expand a business, then it's important to just know who are the players that would speak to those, that will be able to help you. So in the later slides, I'll talk about some of the players that are stronger for startup capital, some of the type of lenders that are stronger for operating capital, and when you can get those, how you can step into those. With operating capital, what really, so for startup capital, what does it really mean? It really just means funds that you're going to need to launch the business forward. Let's say you're trying to start a restaurant. How much you're going to need to start a restaurant is significantly higher than what it's going to need if you're trying to start a consulting business from your house. Because from a restaurant, you're going to have build outs, you're going to have employees, you're going to have staff, you're going to have permits, and all this stuff that before you even open the door, you have to expand. And so that cost is sometimes higher, it's much higher depending on the industry. So every industry, their startup capital needs might be different, and the degree of which you can get in and get it might be different. When it comes to operating capital, what does that mean? It just really means money to continue to run your business. You need money to pay for pay rent. You need money to take care of staff. You need money to maybe because it takes time for your customers to pay you back. You need money to fund those timelines. Sometimes people also call it working capital. Those things are valid needs. But when you also go to a lender, everything is all about how you present things. If you go to a lender and tell them, oh, I don't have money to pay my rent, I need the money to pay my rent, that's one of the red flags. But if you say, I need the money to have staff and I want to expand their hours, or I'm going to be doing some marketing projects, I want to expand that, that's much more doable. But for them, they're like, wait, you're already in business and you can't pay your rent, then maybe you're one step away from losing this business. So it's also how you present those things matter. And in an operating capital, there's a whole list of things that you have that are expenses. And there are things that help the business move forward stronger. And those are the ones you want to kind of elevate more. And then when it comes to equipment capital, those are things that sometimes businesses that have more of maybe construction related or physical spaces, or they're doing event planning or need a medical transport, they're trying to do all those things. They would need a lot of equipment and they need to kind of get it ongoing basis. Sometimes people use that, sometimes people lease this, sometimes you don't have to buy it. At times buying is wise, sometimes leasing is better. But those options are available when it comes to equipment. And all this stuff also can be part of your expansion plan as well. And so now we kind of have this framework of some of this, why you need it and some of the things. So I'm going to talk about the ground level needs of what, from a debt financing perspective, what most lenders would look for. And like I said, the first part of this is talking about the debt side, which is like loans. And then the latter part, I'll talk about equity finance, which is really more about you giving up shares of your company. And I'll tell you about just how that works typically and where you could fit in depending on your industry. But this framework here is really what a lender would take a look at. In my years of experience, building up loan programs and reviewing loans and reviewing deals, approving deals, this is the framework that we use. And what does it really mean? They talk about this 5 C's of credit. Really, it's like think about 5 stools that like legs of a stool. and you need to be able to kind of prove that you have most of them strong, or at least 3 solid ones. And I'll tell you some of the top 3 that is very key for you to have. And when they're weak, what you can do to like adjust it and how it comes to it. The first one is the cash flow and capacity. What does that mean? For a lender, that's really what they call it. They say cash is king. They might not care if you have like 5, 10 buildings. If you can't liquidate it, they're looking at how quickly can you repay this debt. So I'm giving you $100,000. You're going to turn around and I'm going to need a payment every month for the next 5 to 7 years. How do I know that you can make this payment consistently without defaulting? And the only way I can know that you can make this payment without defaulting is to take a look at your history of what you've made in the past, how much you've made, how much is left over in the past. So when they look at cash flow, they're looking at what is left after you paid all your bills, after you've paid all your spend, which is pretty much your profit. What's left in your profit that they can take out of that and make payment and make payments from. And most lenders will take a look and they'll see, okay, well, you made $1 million, excellent. But oh, wait a minute, you wrote off like everything in your expenses, and because you didn't want to pay taxes. So I would say tax and loans are 2 enemies. They don't like each other. Most people want to reduce their tax burden. They don't want to pay as much tax because if they show a high profit, you're going to have to pay taxes on it, right? But from a lender perspective, if you show less profit, they're going to tell you and say, oh, it doesn't look like you make enough money to continue to run this business. Even if you made $1 million, but you didn't keep much. So for them, they look at it and say, well, this is not a sustainable business. And you might raise your hand and say, well, but my bank account, I made enough money, I did this, I did that. But what you file with the IRS is the final verdict on what they would hold on to. So it's important if you're going to go into a borrowing, like the next 2 years or next year you're going to borrow, talk to your CPA and have a strategy around, I know I'm going to need to show that I have strong, cash flow. And what I miss is pretty much profit. I can't afford, I know it's going to mean that I have to pay taxes on this. But what can I do? What strategies can I do that it can still reduce my tax burden, but not completely make it go as low that I won't be able to qualify for this loan? So the key again is cash flow capacity speaks to your net profit if you've already been in business. If you've never been in business and you're a startup, this is where it's like you have nothing to show for it. You have no history to show for it. And they will typically take a look back and they'll see what they call projections. And projections, what does that mean is that they will say, write a business plan. Give us what your numbers are going to look like in the next 1 year. So if you're going to have a restaurant, how many meals are you going to serve? How many tables are in that restaurants? What's your average meal ticket? How many times are people going to come in there? And then they're going to say, okay, what makes you believe that would actually happen? And so what's your worst case scenario? What's your best case scenario? And then with that, they will estimate out like what you could potentially earn and what you potentially keep. And because it's an estimate and it's a forecast, it might never happen. You might do really well, you might do really terrible. I mean, I've seen so many forecasts that they had really good intention. COVID hit and everything's changed and they couldn't even hit half of what they intended to do. So because it's a forecast and your startup, they would look more at what you have personally. They want to see how well you have an income, a day job that can support it. So when it comes to a startup, this cash flow, they heavily look more at your personal expenses and your personal income. So don't quit your day job if you're about to start a business. That's just number 1 tip. So this one, you have to first make sure that you're solid on your cash flows. The second is the capital. As far as the capital is concerned, what does that mean? It says what they're really looking for is, have you invested in your business? What can you show that you've put into the business? So you're coming to say, I need $100,000, but then you say, no, I'm not going to put a dime in this business. I've never put a dime in it. I don't intend to put a dime into it. Okay. So what makes you think we should also put our own money if you can't put your own money into it? So the people will say, okay, but how much is what they are looking for? In a typical traditional lender, they're looking for at least, if it's a startup, they're looking for at least 20%. So if you're going to ask for 100,000, that you can show that you either have 20,000 that you've put into the business and you can show proof like over time you've spent this much money, or if you're an existing business that you can show like at least 10% of it. Is that considered a down payment? No, it's not. There are ways, creative ways you can kind of make a case for it. I've worked with clients where they didn't have cash, but they've put so much time into it. And we call that sweat equity. And if you can demonstrate, like, I've been working on this project and these are the things milestone I've achieved. And if I were to hire somebody to do this, this is what it would cost me. And I'm valuing this at this much. There's some lenders that would take that as part of your equity stake and the capital that you invest in it. And so that's something else, another tip to keep in mind, in case you're like, wait, I don't have that much cash that I can prove that I either have invested or I could invest. Another thing is collateral. When it comes to collateral, you would say, okay, well, I don't know what I'm going to give them. I don't have a house, or wait, I have a house, but my spouse is never going to let me put that house on. We definitely don't want to create strife in the home. And so then what do? You know, you don't have like another property to put on for collateral. So what are your options? So this is where various lenders, and depending on how much, the higher you're asking for, the more the collateral becomes something that becomes a question that they might want addressed. 90% of the time, lender wants to make sure that the cash flow is there and that you have something invested. Collateral, they can make adjustments and say, okay, maybe if you don't have it, it's okay. The business deal itself is strong enough. But let's say your cash flow is weak and the capital is also weak. Now they're going to be looking at the collateral and say, okay, what else can you use to kind of shore this up? What do you have? Show us your assets. And what is considered a good asset? Every lender is different. The traditional lenders like real estate. So if it's an SBA loan that you're asking for, if you have a real estate, they will make you pledge it. And if you're married and you live in a community property, they will make your spouse sign that they're okay with that. And so just keep in mind there's certain things that that goes also, but the higher you're going with the dollar amount, the more that will be asked for. If you're asking for a traditional loan, meaning that it's not an SBA, it's like a bank loan, and you do qualify for that, they wouldn't mind. They wouldn't ask you for a collateral. So there are different ways to kind of think about it. And I'll show you a grid of the different loan options and how to kind of avoid some of this collateral requirements. And conditions are really what's happening in the community, what's happening in the industry, what's happening in your city, what's happening in the country, what's happening globally, things that you have no control over, but that could impact your business. Let's say, for example, when COVID happened, that was a major condition that impacted certain businesses. A lot of restaurants were impacted. And so if you were going to borrow money at that point, most lenders were not able to do it because the restaurants were not even opening. They couldn't open. So there was significant external condition that was impacting them. But on the other end, other businesses were thriving if they were doing delivery services. They were thriving if they were doing logistics, like truck logistics work. They were thriving. They were in high demand. And then if you take back 2008 and real estate crash, people that were in construction industry and real estate industry really suffered a lot. And most lenders would not lend to them, not because they were bad people, but because the conditions around them for their industry just was not going to work. And so keep in mind, if you have an industry that is highly impacted, you're going to have to come up with your own story of how you're going to, that issue is not going to affect you. And then the last is really on your, is looking at, one second, my screen is frozen. Okay, it's your character. So the last is your character. Are you trustworthy in your business dealing? What are your reference checks? And this is really where credit report comes in. just because they can't go around and check everything about your life and about what we've been doing. And you can say, well, I'm such a good person. I'm a pastor. I'm this and that. You know, everybody knows me as a good person. But at the end of the day, they can't take your word. They can't even take your word of like the person that's giving you reference. It really can't go. The only way is to go back to your credit report. And this is where managing your credit matters. So if you've been, and then this conversation is also for people that have had bad credit, have had good credit, have fair credit. There's a place for all of that. There's options available. The key is to recognize and to know whether the damage has been done, and to then start saying, okay, what are the next steps that I'm going to need to take to start making it and bringing it back to whole. And when it comes to the credit, there are lenders that would, and I work for those kind of lenders that do what they call community development financial institution. They function to make sure that they can fill a gap. And what's that gap? Gap that you've made mistakes around credit, gaps that you don't have collateral, gaps like you don't have enough capital because you didn't come from a rich uncle family, your daddy didn't have an extra trust fund to pass on to you. And so you have to start up from it. And a lot of people also, immigrant families coming in a later stage of life, restarting life, having to juggle so many things, don't have that extra cash in. And so recognizing that that's available, there's a place for those kind of lending options where people that has less than 600 credit score can still get loan. But how do you get that? The key is, what is the story behind that credit issue? And what are you doing to fix it? So you don't want to step into a lending situation until you've started identifying how to fix it. And what does fixing look like? Doesn't mean that your credit score is going to jump up right away. But what they want to know is, okay, if you have 5 collections and they were like 3 years ago and they're still showing, can you create a payment plan to start working, to work things out? That to them shows that you have integrity, that even if life happened before, you actually have taken steps right now to make those changes. But let's say maybe foreclosure, a repossession happened, more major things. Same thing. How recent were those things? Are they older? The older they are, better. And then you want to also be able to show like, okay, these are the things that I'm doing right now to make it better. I joined a credit counseling program. Saving up right now. So you can write up your story and say, this happened, I lost my job, somebody was sick in the family. As long as it's not a pattern where it's like every year there's an issue, then that becomes more of like something that needs to be worked out. But if it's life that happens and the credit got really dinged, then the first thing is to go and check this credit, review it, and make sure you can, make some changes and start working towards it. So those are these key 5 C's of credit are critical foundation that every lender will look at. And so if you were to kind of say, what are the top ones? Like which ones matters? They all matter, but I would say if you had to pick the cash flow, top one, like you can't miss that. Like if there's no cash flow, there's no deal, like the deal falls apart. Then your credit. Credit can be explained away depending on what kind of lender you're working with. You might not get the large amounts if your credit is really bad, but you can start somewhere, and within a year or so, you show improvement, they come back, they give you more. And then the last is the capital and collateral. But the cash flow is the first one, and the credit character is the second one. That's very critical to make sure that you're monitoring it. And so a few vocabulary that I just want to kind of keep us in mind of that will come up, and that is important to just know. When you're approaching, especially when you're approaching borrowing and capital, you want to be familiar with certain language. They said that in lending, there's first impression matters, and you can't take that first impression back. And ignorance sometimes is not an excuse. So one top of mind, kind of few of them that I want to kind of keep in mind is owner's draw. If you're a sole proprietor, meaning when you file your taxes, you don't have a corporation or LLC behind it, and maybe not, some LLC actually works as it, but if you don't have a corporation, like you're not an S corp in a way, you don't have a W-2, you don't collect W-2 from the business, then what you have is owner's draw. It's not salary, it's owner's draw. And that's the way they consider that. The second thing is personal guarantee. What does that mean? It's really you saying as a person. Sometimes people say, I'm a corporation. I filed my corporation. Why should I have to put my name and put my social security on it? I have a LLC. I did this. I don't know why I also have to like sign for it. Well, here it matters. Why does it matter? Is because at the end of the day, if you're not making like 50 million, 100 million plus, every bank still wants a human being to sign off on it because they want to be sure that at the end of the day, you can pay it off. And if the business can't pay it, somebody has to be willing to take the responsibility and pay it off. And so just because you have a corporation, just because you have an LLC, doesn't mean that your personal guarantee would not still stand. So keep that in mind, because sometimes I hear it online. People say, oh, you can go out and get settings like some business credit cards, but at the end of the day, if you default on it, it will still pop on your personal credit. So be mindful of that. Second thing is variable versus fixed rate. There's so many lenders out there that give you, rates and different rates, especially in this kind of market that we're in. It's better to go with a fixed rate because prime right now is 8% plus. I believe it's gone up. And so what you're dealing with is now if prime rate keeps going up, which is what we call very variable, that means it could change by external, like, what the economy is dictating. That means your loan can keep rising and every quarter it could keep going up and up. So you want to lock in a fixed rate when it comes to if you are trying to borrow something, nothing that would be changing significantly. And the last term that I want to kind of share with us is what they call UCC lien. It's called the Uniform Commercial Code. It's kind of like if you were to buy a car and you bought a car from Toyota dealer and you financed it with Toyota. Well, you kind of own the car, but technically Toyota owns that car until you pay it off. And so what it just also means is that anytime you get a loan, but 90% of the lenders out there, they will do what they call a UCC lien on your business. And that means if you were ever to try to go and sell that business, you'll have to first pay them off before you sell that business. That lien is going to stay on the business until you pay them off. And why is that important? Sometimes people think, oh, I'm going to go. And then if they're also going to go to another lender, some lender will say, and it's in order of who gives you the loan first. If you come to lender A and they give you the loan first, they're going to file theirs and the dates, they're going to be number one. If you go to another lender, they will like, well, you have lender A on top of ours. We want to be number one. We can't give you this loan unless you tell the other lender to give up their spot. So just keep in mind as you're borrowing, if you need a large sum of money, you're going to need to continuously go for more capital. This lien, they'll stack it up on your loan, on your business over time. It doesn't show up on your personal credit, but it's just really tied to the business as a lien. So when they say there's no collateral, some lenders will say you don't have to put collateral down, but what they would do is make sure that you have this UCC lien on your business. And that to them is a way of life saying anytime that they own the business asset. So if you have a restaurant, they will file a UCC lien on it. That means if you were to try to close down the restaurant, they can come and pick up all your ovens and your tables and chairs, from there. If you have nothing, then there's nothing for them to take down. It doesn't touch your personal assets, just your business assets. So when should you borrow? I mentioned that earlier. That's something that's important to kind of remember. When should you borrow? You want to really take a step back. Are you generating some questions you want to ask yourself? Are you generating enough profits currently to qualify? Will this loan help you generate more profits? And then can you afford the monthly payment? Those are very important questions kind of ask, because sometimes we knee-jerk reaction is like, I need more money. I need more money. But you have to be really wise, because that money, you're going to have to pay it off. And so think about just how much it's going to help you and what changes. And sometimes capital is the foil that a business needs to move forward. If you have demand that people are knocking on your doors and say, I need this service, I need this product, and you just know, if only I can expand this location, I will be able to serve 10 times more. Oh, perfect. I can serve 2 times more. Perfect. But if you're not sure, and you're thinking, I think if I do this, then, and you're going to invest so much money without having a bit of confidence or testing. So the key is to just test before you pour a lot of money into it. And also the lenders will also ask you the same thing. So I want to take a kind of step in to look at a few spectrum of what some of the lending options are out there. On the spectrum on the left side, you see what are called traditional loan. And those are really the types of loans that are more low interest and, and the requirements are higher. If it were this are stuff you would get from a bank, on the left-hand side, they are more like, you're trying to get a low interest, but you also have a stricter requirement. On the opposite side, you have higher interest, but you have easier requirements. So you have to kind of think about just what are you willing to give up? Are you willing to give up the stress of going through the process? Do you have 750 credit score and you can walk into a bank and you have $100,000 recurring in your bank accounts kind of popping in? Those are kind of requirements of traditional loans. And that's how half of the time, most people, when they come in, they feel so discouraged. And I've worked with so many clients that they come in and they feel so discouraged. Like, I've had my accounts with Bank of America. I walked in the door and I asked for a loan and they treated me so shabbily and I just can't believe it. I'm leaving them. And I was like, just calm down. That's the way the structure is set up, but there's option for you. So we're going to talk about some of this option, especially for those that have tried the traditional and they've not really been successful. But I'm here to also tell you that there's a way to also get into the traditional loan options. So just because it hasn't worked doesn't mean it can't work maybe 5 years from now or 3 years from now. It's just a matter of understanding what it takes to get in the door and how you can prepare yourself for it. So I'm going to go into now what this kind of options look like. So as I first said, on the traditional side, you have the examples of those are like your B of A, your Chase, your Wells Fargo. The rates are cheaper. They're definitely cheaper. And I tell people when somebody comes into the door and say, I can't believe this loans are like 9-10%. Why should I pay that much money? It's like, great, walk to B of A and see if they give you a loan. They can give you the loan. Yeah, you might be able to get 5% loan for them, which is great. And I say, aim for that. But the truth is that they wouldn't touch your loan unless you're like asking for, now it's even more than 100,000. Like some of them are now 250,000 minimum before you even can talk to them, to get something that's decent. Because for them, it's not cost effective to do small loans. It takes just as much energy for them to do small loans, even if you have great credit, than it is to do big loans. So they would rather talk to you if you're talking about 200K more. They'll rather talk to you when you get into that range. Another thing why traditional lenders don't want to talk to small businesses is if the business is still less than 2 years. If you're less than 2 years in business, or some of them even say less than 3 years in business, they don't want to talk to you. Why? Because they don't have the history, your history of like how well you've done. And what if you've been 3 years or 5 years more? If you're not showing consistent profit, that's also another thing that they don't want to talk to you. Or if your business, you're showing the profits, but the credit is not as strong. Your personal credit is not as strong. That's also another thing to keep in mind. And also something else to keep in mind is if you're going in and you have a partner and you're 5 of you or 3 of you, the weakest link is what's going to drag you down. Everybody has to have the same strength. You can say, but 3 of us have 750 credit score, but 1 of us have 500 credit score. If that person has 20% or more in terms of their ownership of the company, they're going to be seen as with equal eyes, and the deal could be completely gone from that point, just because of that one person. So keep in mind how you kind of build your teams and you build your partnership to kind of align like each other's strength together. And if you have to restructure the business, talk to your CPA to kind of adjust the ownership stakes, so that if you're pursuing an application or loan, you have better chances. And remember, what they're looking for is 20% or more ownership stake. If it's less than 20%, they can let that person go and not pull their credits. Another thing is if the person doesn't have a, if they're 20% money, they don't have, they're not like US citizens and things like that. Less than 20%, they can also be like excused and not really be requested to kind of provide documentation. So we'll move into now, let's say the traditional ones, which are really great, what you get from your BFA. Now let's talk about SBA. SBA is like one of those big things that everybody talks about a lot. Like, I'm going to get an SBA loan. There's the great benefits of SBA loans. You can use it to do business acquisitions. And by the way, that's one of the best ways if you have, you know, an existing business to get an SBA loan. If, let's say, you're trying to buy, for example, a medical transport business, and they already have recurring clientele, they have the vehicles, they have all these assets that you're buying, you can get it financed by a lender faster than you can get your business, a new one, started. Why? Because they already see a track record, and you're taking over that track record, and if you have like your own history, like experience in it, you can get an SBA loan to finance that for you. So they can do that. They can also do tenant improvement. Unless you have a property that you moving into and you need to renovate it, you can use that as well. They also finance startups too. They also finance equipment. They also do purchases of real estate. So real estate for SBA loans goes up to 5 million. That's as much as you can borrow from there. For traditional lenders, is unlimited, like whatever you need. If you qualify for it, the banks can do it. And so if you're looking for that, what would it take? If you're new and you have credit is a little bit challenged, but an experience, you have good experience in the industry, maybe you're trying to expand the business and you're trying to get an SBA loan. You can easily get an SBA loan, but also keep in mind not all SBA loans are equal. You can walk into a bank, B of A, Chase, all of them, they also offer SBA loan. But what you will get in terms of your terms and the way they will underwrite you could be different from going to another lender. So just because you've tried with a place doesn't mean it's not doable. I always say SBA works really well when you're dealing with community lenders, community banks, because they are trying to move it forward more faster. So finding community lenders, credit unions in your community that offers this actually are much more beneficial. Another thing to keep in mind with SBA is that most of the rates are, if it's not a real estate loan, most of the rates are variable. That means they're going to change as the rates are changing the feds are changing the rates. Many of the rates are tied to prime. And what's prime right now is over 8%. So if you add that and you add another 2.75%, let's say now prime goes to 9, let's say it goes to 10, your interest and your payment is going to jump up higher. So in this economy, SBA sometimes could work, but you have to have an exit strategy to think about, what if it jumps by 2-3%? What will I do? Can I still afford this payment? But it works well for real estate because real estate is fixed. If you're trying to buy a property, you can easily get real estate financing. And one big tip about that is, if you want to do real estate financing with SBA, you only have to occupy 51% of it. So if you find a property that's $200,000, depending on what state you're in, California, that's not realistic. But let's say you find a $200,000 property and you find like, oh my goodness, this is great. If the place is already rented, half of it is rented, they can take that income from that rental income and apply it to the income of the business. Or you can also, and as long as you can say, I'm going to keep 51% for myself, and you rent the other part, your renter can be paying for you. So SBA loan is a really good strategy when it comes to acquiring your own business location, and also having rental income coming from it is a very great one. So keep that in mind. And next is the microloans, CDFI loans. This is where I would say, if you have never got a loan and you're trying to get a loan about 100,000 or less, and you've had challenges, maybe credit challenges, or like time in business, or trying to kind of get yourself sorted out with documentation. This is the kind of the sweet spot of options that I would say actually is designed to give you access to capital. So there are programs what they call, I mentioned it earlier, called CDFI. CDFI stands for Community Development Financial Institution. And their main goal is to give capital. They have a mandate to give capital to small businesses within certain communities and within certain income size. So they're looking to give more loans to low income, to Blacks, to immigrants, to women. It doesn't mean you get lower rates because you're Black. It doesn't mean you get lower rates because you're women. It doesn't mean you get lower rates because you're low income. It just means that they're looking to give it more to you. It doesn't mean they change the requirement. They have a requirement internally to say, we are setting our organization up to serve more of this population. And we're going to report back. They have the impacts reports that they send back to the Treasury about how they're doing with this. So the Treasury has put $2 or $3 billion into this CDFI fund, just because of what's happened since COVID, and also because a lot of businesses weren't able to get loans from the major banks. Most small businesses couldn't get this. So what CDFI programs are doing is they're reaching out in the community, and every state has one. We'll talk about follow-ups and next steps. So every state usually has one. How do they function? They would also, you have a loan application, the same things work, but they would take a different look when it comes to credit score. If you've had the bankruptcy, if you have foreclosure, short sale, all those things, doesn't mean they would deny you. They want to know what's the story behind it. They want to know, what are you doing right now to change it? Can you tell us what are the last 6 months? Do you have a payment plan? And how is that payment plan going? Do you have a tax lien? What is your payment plan? Are you consistently making a payment plan for the last 6 months? And then they will look at your, personal income too. So they want to try to see, how can we give you this money? What are other income sources? So for people that have a business and have a day job, other income source, or a spouse that's working, they'll take a look at that. And they'll consider all those options in terms of how you can get qualified. The goal is to help you get qualified. And then they also have like support services like counseling, free counseling support to help you kind of walk you through it, so that when you come back for more capital, you'll be better off. You would have understood some of the requirements, some of the documents and things that is needed. And then the last is the online lenders. Online lenders are, I would say, walk with caution. There's so many of them. And if you're in business, you might have already taken a loan from them, or you might be considering taking a loan from them, because they're very aggressive and they're also very tempting. They come at that time where you need it the most, and they make it very easy. See that spectrum that I showed us earlier? They're the easier part of it. Why? Because they've monitored, so things like places like PayPal, places like what's this other place, like Etsy, that know your Square. If you're doing like kind of transactions online, they see your, even QuickBooks, they see all your bills, they see everything that's coming in, they see your revenue that's coming in, and they can project out what you need, and they can pretty much know how much the pattern is, and they will offer you certain deals. They'll offer you a line of credit, but guess what they'll do? The payments will come out weekly. And those weekly payments that they're taking out is extremely stressful on most businesses. I've seen interest rates as high as 50 to 60% coming out of people's accounts. A loan that's only supposed to be like $800, $500, they're charging about $4,000 or $5,000 a month, because they want that money aggressively and they want it back. They want it back within 6 months. They want it back within 9 months. They would tell you, oh, it's not a big deal, this is this, and they would break it down in ways where it's very attractive. So I would say, if you're going to do online lending, watch and pray. And we'll go with caution. Look at the fine print if you have to, but it's one that I say could have certain downside to it. But if you are aware of why you're doing it and you have a strategy, it's worked for certain people as an urgent, when they need it urgently. The last one I'm going to share is the factor lenders. I don't know how many people here have businesses that their clients are also business owners. Like if you do business with the government or you do business with other businesses, like your clients are other businesses and they take 30 days, 60 days to pay you, you might run into what they call a cash crunch, meaning you don't have enough money to pay your bills, but you have jobs that you've done, you have invoices that people owe you, but you can't collect on it because they've not, maybe you have to wait a certain period before you collect on it. That sometimes happens to like contractors, that sometimes happen to businesses that do business with other businesses. So if that's the case, you might want to think about adjusting your price to what they call a factor. Factors are just really, they buy your invoice from you. If you have $100,000 invoice, you did a job for Department of Energy and they owe you $100,000. But right now you need to pay payroll for 60,000. You don't have that money, but you know the money is coming. But wait, your employees are not going to wait for another 1 month to get their money. You got to have to pay for that. And so sometimes the banks are not going to give you a line of credit. Sometimes you won't have access to some of those options that's available. So what do you do? It's an option that some people have done is take what they call a factor deal. They pretty much give you, they charge you a fee. If $100,000 is what you think you need to finance, they will just give you a flat fee every 30 days. $3,000, 3% of that's about $3,000 of the 100,000. You pay that, and that means for that 30 days, you have 30 days to pay them back for that money. If you don't pay that back, then another 3,000 is going to come up on top of that money because they've advanced you this money that you have with the hope that your client will pay you back on time. If the client extends it out another 30 days, they send you another bill and take that out of the money until you pay them back. So it works when you know you have a client that will pay you within the time frame that it's just that you need that money sooner. And that one of the benefit of factors is that they don't look at credit. They don't care about your credit as much. They care more about your client's credit, your client's business credit. That's what matters most to them. So those are the options that I want to share with us today. There's still some more, but before we're going to take a short kind of interlude. I want us to do a quick scenario, and I want to kind of talk about the scenario. So Mr. and Mrs. Hosanna have owned their business for 5 years. They want to expand their patio seating to accommodate more customers. They need $50,000 to cover their costs. The credit is great, but profit is very slim. Where can they find the money? Put in the chat. Who would you send them to? Would you send them to online lending? Where would you send them to? I just want to get a sense because I want us to be interactive to kind of see if there's any thoughts of kind of like how we're thinking about this, because these are real life scenarios that you might be walking through, and you might be thinking, where do I go? Is this even possible for me? You can drop it in the chat if you have an idea of where you would send it to. Somebody says microloan. That sounds good. Somebody said microloan. That sounds good. Yeah. SBA, yes, that's also possible. Yeah, so all these options, microloan, SBA are all options. The ones that will probably get the money faster will probably has a higher possibility as a microloan. But if credit is great, I want to give you this kind of option that I didn't share at the beginning. If credit is really good, there are some banks that have what are called shelf products. They don't always advertise it. And some of the big banks have pulled it, but some community banks still have it. And what you can do is just walk into the bank and say, hey, I have a 800 credit score. I would love to know if you have any shelf product for business. And what they just do is they just qualify you based on your personal credit and whatever you just like. It's like stated income, and they just have you fill out like a one-page application, and the system can pre-qualify you for it. Those cases, because you have good profits and you've been in business for a while and your credit is great and you've been with that bank, they might be able to give you something. Sometimes that doesn't work, but that's also an option that you can ask. But on the other end, where most likely the options that will be available will be a microloan because of the size of the money that they're asking for. And so that's, and because profit is very slim. And hopefully with this, they're saying that they want to borrow the money so they can accommodate more people. So this is speaking to those 3 questions I asked. Will this help them make more money? They're not saying they're not saying that, oh, this business, we've lost, like the neighborhood, like big mall has closed and the business is going down and we just need more money to pay rent. If that's what they said the need was, and they need 50,000, they're not going to get it. But because they're saying they need to grow the business, the direction of the business is growth, and it shows like, hey, patio seating, we add maybe 5, 10 more seats, that could definitely convert to more money. It makes more reasonable sense for them to be able to show that and get the capital. So you guys were right. You're already on your way to being lender experts. We're going to have another scenario. This one, Dayo has been informally making jewelry. She has several followers on social media that love her jewelry. And she decides to launch her business officially. She only needs 10K. However, she has had foreclosure 2.5 years and a repossession 5 years ago. Is there any hope for her? Like repossession and foreclosure altogether? Do you think she has any hope? Does she need to wait for 7 years? Does everybody say you got to wait for 7 years to clear these things off your record? So I'm looking at the chat. CDFI is possible. Yes, they said there's hope for them, for Dayo. Okay. All right. You guys are very hopeful people and very, very confident in this hope. Well, I'll give you why is there hope for her? One is that the dollar amount she's asking for is small. Let's say she's asking for $1 million. Is there hope for her? Maybe not right away, because it's still very recent, right? And if she doesn't have any other assets, that those things are going to be more apparent. So the dollar amount that you're asking for, plus like what the amount and the degree of the credit issues matter. So there's an art and a science to lending. The science part is the first basic one, is that, do you have enough money to repay this every month? Can we show that you can repay it? That's the first thing. If you can't say yes on that, there's no deal. The second is the credit piece. Can we trust that this person would not default again? That they have a pattern of default and this is just in their blood. They're like chronic defaulters. We just know them. We can't lend to them. Or is it just life that happened to them? So in this case, maybe it's life that happened to her, or maybe not. Maybe she just likes to walk away from deals. So she'll have to tell a story about why. And this is why every person that comes into it, or with some different stories, is not always perfect. It's not always the same. The questions their needs are not always the way they are looked upon, might be a bit different because of the nature of what that they might be walking through. So in this case, because it has a low dollar amount, there's hope. But if it was a higher dollar amount, she might have to wait a little bit longer to get to that amount. Last one. So Godwin owns a plumbing, owns a plumbing company. Give me a second, my screen. Yes, okay. Business is going well, revenue has picked up, but there is delay in payment. If only he can get a line of credit to fill in the gap. He needs about 30K on a monthly basis to cover his accounts receivable shortfall. His credit is not so great. What's the best option he can pursue? Somebody said factoring. Wow, you guys are good students. My goodness, I should hire you guys. Okay, great. You didn't even have the cheat sheet in front of you and you're already like scoring high on this. Great. So factoring is actually a good option if we can't, because the credit is so low. Going back to a bank, he's not going to get a bank line of credit. And banks are really the only place for lines of credit. Most other places, if you were going to go to CDFI, they don't do line of credit. They do loans. And just a quick kind of note about the difference of a loan and a line of credit. A loan is like a car note. You buy your car notes, you got $70,000 for that Jeep. You drive off, you have a certain time frame to pay it, and you pay it equally every month. You can't come back and say, I want to get an extra tire with like $5,000. No, you have to go get a different loan. That's a term loan. A line of credit is very similar to like your credit card. However, it's cash. But a line of credit, you can say, Bank of America approved me for $75,000 line of credit. Oh, great. How long would you have that for? It's pretty much open. And every year they check it again and see, is it still available? And sometimes they might reduce that line of credit and say, okay, last year, it looks like you didn't use as much, or wait, you used too much. You don't even know when you can offend these bank people when it comes to line of credit. If you don't use enough, they could pull it. If you overuse and you're not paying enough and you're not paying it back regularly, they could also pull it down. So the key if you are lucky enough to get a line of credit, which is you have access to it and you can use it and pay it off, use it and pay it off, is that the good way is to use it and pay it off regularly to demonstrate to them that you're using it, because or else they're not making money off of it. Remember, banks, they want you to use their money so they can make money. If their money is sitting down and you have a fat line of credit and you're not pulling it and using it, that means they can go to Mr. Joe Blow next door and lend him that money and make more from it. So use it and pay it off, because lines of credit are gold. It's not that easy to come across. But if you get it, and your business is doing well, you want to protect it. And you also want to have a good banker that would help you keep an eye on it, to make sure that, hey, there's nothing that's like they're not going to pull it from you. And in the world of banking, there's never a no forever. You can always advocate for yourself. You can always question what they said. It's never the final answer. You know, it's just a matter of what levers you have to pull to get them to change it. You might not have enough lever to pull, but let's say you have a lot of assets there. You can threaten them and say, I'm going to pull my assets. Depends on what region, where that bank is located. If that bank is like in Manhattan, New York City, and they have a pretty big fat balance sheet, they might not care about your asset. But if it's in a small town and they know it's going to drop their bank balance, they might move and make some changes to get you what you need. So don't just walk away with a no. Push them for an answer. So in this case, factor would be great as an option. And they also, what a person would do is, in this case, is that they want to make sure that in this plumbing company, that they build their pricing. Their pricing has to be built to be able to take that price. So if he's charging $5,000 and he didn't put that financing cost into it, he's actually shortchanging himself. So if you're going to go into factoring, just make sure that you put that price that that fee they're charging you, you spread it over your own cost to your customers. So you can keep your profit at the end of the day. So we are at the point of this first half where I want to take some questions on the first things I've discussed before I go into what is a winning, building a winning loan package. Like what gets you, now we've talked about, hey, all this stuff that can get you there, but how will I really get their attention and that gets a yes? Do you have any questions at this point? There's a lot of information I've shared, but do you have any question before we jump into this?
I think we had, Pastor Titi, we had quite some questions come through on the chat.
Do you want to read it out, please?
Yes, the first question is, what bank, that was at the initial phase, the first slide where you were talking about the 5 C's of credit.
Yes.
First question is, what bank is good for small business or startup?
That's a
what kind of bank would you recommend? But I think in the course of your presenting the slide, hopefully the person already got the answer, but I don't know if you want to talk about it again briefly, because we have 3 questions that came in the chat room.
Okay, all right. So quickly on that one is, what bank, if you're a startup, you kind of need to think about what you need. So in banking, there's like your finance need, but there's also your day-to-day need. If you're kind of person that needs tech savviness, like for me, for our business accounts, we use Chase. Why do I use Chase? Because I just like the easiness of their bank platform. Am I going to get all the financing needs I need there? Probably not. And so I could also have another alternative lender, alternative bank. So you can have two. This is the one that you don't have to be a monogamy in your banking. You don't have to have just one. You can have multiple, you can have two banks, and one for like your main stuff, and the other one you just have a small account there because you're trying to pursue it. So you think about, what do you need for your day-to-day? Which bank offers that, like on a daily basis? If credit union, if you can get a with credit union, you're comfortable with their online banking, then I would say credit unions are great. But also make sure that that credit union has business support, has programs for business loans. Want to ask, do some question checking with different banks, find out what they're doing, what they're trying to do, what options they have for you as a business owner before you just walk in there and give them your business. But
Okay.
you can have two.
Okay, thank you so much for the answer. But things to note: make sure that the bank you're going to has business support and program support. Find out the kind of programs that they offer when you're seeking a bank for your small business or for startup. The second question we had was, and this was from scenario 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the person was asking what kind of credit qualifies. I'm assuming personal credit score. What kind of credit score will qualify to be able to obtain a loan from a micro? Because I think for scenario 2, most people responded that micro bank will be the best to get the loan from, and you affirm that that's yes. So what kind of credit will qualify for this type of loan?
So for that, I think I was the one with 10K. We've done deals for 550 credit score. We've done for like small 10K. 100K probably you can get 550 first, but we've also done for like 600 for 100K plus. Why? Because there was a story behind it. There was like a divorce and there was a medical issue. So the story matters. So I would say with those micro loan lenders, they are not trying to nail you so much on your score. They want to know what's happened. They want to know the story behind the credits, and then they will look at your credit history, on your credit report to see what are the things specifically that are on that credit report that validates or invalidates it. If you're lying, we can tell. So you just tell the truth, like, I messed up. Like, I've seen so many stories. People have gone to jail and they messed things up. They committed fraud, they messed things up. But now they've changed. So you want to tell the story of, I was once lost, now I'm found. And when you are found, you want to make sure they found you inside of a good place.
Yeah, I noticed that's a recurring in every of the slide. You always talked about the story. And by no means is Pastor Titi encouraging any of us to lie, because she said that if you lie, they will find you out eventually. And of course, I mean, lying is just not the right thing to do as children of God. So your story matters, and be honest. I think that's one thing that you've been trying to tell us. Be honest, be sincere, present the facts, and show potential that your business can actually grow and thrive, and will not run the bank or the institution amok by financing you. Yeah. And the last one, okay, not the last, because another question came in. The third question we got was, let me read this from here. Is I think this was when you were talking about lines of credit and how good it is to have it. This person wanted to know if the line of credit is the same as a business credit card. I know you already talked about it before, but can you just...
Yeah, I can explain it. So line of credit, it works similar in nature, but it's a bit different. So with a line of credit, you can take it as cash and transfer it to your bank account. And you have a set, like, kind of fee on it. It pretty much sits on your... If you have a bank account, you can transfer the money. It's as good as cash. You can use it to pay your staff. While a business credit card can take care of like payments, but you can't really move it as cash. If you move it as cash, you're pretty much doing what they call a cash advance. And that is so expensive. And so the credit card, while like when you pay it, is kind of very similar. With the credit card, you have like almost like an open-ended, like you can have a balance for like 5 years and nobody question you. But with a line of credit, they review it every year. And so if you're not taking care of it and moving it, then you might not have access to it longer. Even with credit cards, they can reduce your availability if you're not managing it well. So with a line of credit, the biggest difference is that it's cheaper. It's also as good as cash. Like you can write a check on it. They even give you a checkbook with it. And so you can use it. It works really well when you're trying to pay make payments that's like very cash-based, like pay staff for it. While the business credit card, you can buy supplies, but you have a higher interest rate on it.
Okay.
Business card, yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then I think the last question we have right now before you go into the second, the next phase of this presentation is talking about Uniform Commercial Code. Can you let the lender be aware of you selling your business as part of the negotiation? I think this is from the 5 C's.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the question, I guess, is if you have, maybe a clarity might be needed, but I'm assuming that if you have this, the UCC code works when they put it on it in your business, like, and so if you're now at the point where you want to sell it, you have to kind of, the buyer has to be aware, and the buyer has to be willing to put the cash towards paying it off, so that it becomes pretty much a release. It's almost like your house. You have a lien on your house, and there's like an escrow company that holds that exchange to ensure that as they pay off that loan, the buyer that's buying the business paying that loan, the lender is also aware, and the lender is also committed to releasing that lien at the same time. So there has to be like an escrow, like there are business escrow companies that help facilitate that process. Yeah. So, and then can a lender, especially individual private lender, invest in your business as a way of accessing capital? Yes, they can. So that would be when you talk about investing, that's two different words. They can lend you money and they want their money back, and with interest. They can invest in your business and they take a piece of your shares back of the business. So we'll talk about that part later. So lenders usually don't do it they don't consider it as investment. They consider it as a lending. They're providing capital with interest. So the investment part is different. So I'm not sure if I'm answering that properly. And then I will take maybe 2 more. By 11:30, I want us to kick into the next one.
Yeah, there are 2 more here. The next question is, what's the best loan for real estate? What would you recommend?
Depends. If you're owning the property and you want to stay in it and you want to use it for business, SBA is better. You'll get the best rate. If you're doing it for investment, SBA doesn't do investment loans unless you can show that you can split half, at least 51% for your own business, and you run that business in it. And the other 49% you can rent it out. So you can buy 10 different properties up to, like, they cap it at a certain point that you can do splits, but you have to really have a legitimate business that you run from it with that 51%. If you don't, and you want to just do investment, then you just go into a commercial real estate, get a commercial real estate, you have to put at least 30% down. The SBA only requires you to put 10% down.
Okay.
That's part of the benefit, yeah.
Okay. And the final one before we kick into, and we thank you everyone for bringing in your questions, but we'll be kicking into the next phase of this presentation today. The final question before we do so is there interest payment on a line of credit?
Yes, there is. So usually a line of credit would be what they call the prime plus 1, prime plus 2, prime plus 3, and whatever that is, you'll have to pay the interest only payments every month. That payments would be taken out of your account every month, and then the hope is that you have a cycle of paying down the balance and paying down the balance and using it. But yes, there will be interest payments on it, monthly payments on it, interest only.
Okay. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. And I see there's one more question, but we'll take this after we're done.
Let me answer this.
You have room? Okay.
Yeah, answer this one.
So when trying to borrow and you use your house as collateral, and the lender wants to convert your FHA loan into regular loan with high interest rates. So I don't really see the question here.
So maybe the question is not completed yet, but if you're trying to borrow and you use your house as a collateral, will the lender convert your FHA into a regular loan with a higher? No, the lender will not touch you. They don't touch up your payments. What they do is they just put a third. If you have 2 liens on your house or one, they'll just go at the next level and put like the third third position lien on it, whatever, or second position lien on it. They're not going to touch your how the structure of your personal home is. They just want to add themselves as like another lien on your home. So that's the way it would work if you were to use it as a collateral. And that usually only comes to play if you're doing SBA loan that is like a working capital loan, with meaning that you need it for operations or to buy business or something, and they see that you have it. If you don't see you have a house, they will see. There's no way you can hide it. They will see because they run your credit reports. Because I know how Nigerians think. They will see it. So it's a matter of how important is that business to you, and then what's your exit strategy of getting out of that SBA loan. SBA loan is a great way to get started when the business doesn't have enough strength, but you can always refinance. Think about this, that you can always refinance, just like homes too. You can step into an FHA loan, but you can refinance that house once it has equity. So once the business grows, you can refinance it with a traditional loan. That's where you just have to keep your eyes on what's my target. I have to get this business to this much revenue and this much profitability, and I have to get my credit score up because I don't want to stay inside of this like thing where they have my lien on my property.
Yeah, I think he continued the question and he said, I was trying to take cash out of the mortgage for the business. So it looked like a situation of this person already has a house.
Yeah.
It was under FHA loan, and they're trying to refinance the house. However, it's not going to be with FHA again, it will be with another lender, with the purpose of taking the additional cash that would be, so.
You can use that. You can cash out and use it for whatever your personal use is for, And another option people have done is personal. They can do 401k loans. I've seen people do 401k loans and use it for their business and lend it back to the business as well. So that's just an option. Yeah. A personal home equity is an option for sure.
Okay. So we're going to be moving into the next phase, and key things to take away is honesty. And when you're seeking your loan provider, make sure you pay attention to the packages they have, business support, program support, and all the other program packages that they might have. Okay, over to you, Pastor Titi.
Thank you. All right. So building a loan winning package, I'm going to zoom through this part a bit. I've talked about some of these tips earlier on. If they offer you a line of credit, take it. Even if you don't feel like you don't need it, like just take it. If they offer you a business credit card, take it. Even if you feel like you don't need it, just keep it there. Be mindful of your ownership structure. If you have multiple partners, double check your credit, because you guys will lose chances of options, opportunities if you don't. Shop your loan. Don't just take their word for it. Let's see here. So here's some documentation. So when it comes to kind of getting yourself ready, like showing up in any of this lenders, traditional, SBA, the micro ones, the factory ones, they all require similar documents. So how do you get yourself kind of well prepared? These are some of the key documents that you want to be aware of. From the financial side, you want to make sure you have your bank statements. If you're already a year plus in business, then you want to have both business and personal tax return. If you're less than a year and you don't have a personal business tax return, that's okay. But your personal and your business, for a bank statement and tax return is going to be asked for. And then financial statements, get a CPA. It's very important to have somebody that's doing your books that can kind of review it and give you what they call a profit and loss annually or at least quarterly. And then legal documents, your business license, your articles of organization, articles of incorporation, your bylaws, depending on how you're structured. And I'm not advocating for or against filing as an LLC or not, filing as a corporation. I'm not making any of that representation here. You want to seek counsel for that. That doesn't make a major difference in terms of what kind of loan you can get. Just as long as your business is performing, that's what matters the most. It makes a difference more about your protection, what protects you down the line from liability, but not so much of your ability to get the loan So as far as planning documents, business plan, recovery plan, lease agreement, to what degree should you kind of put an emphasis on the business plan? If you're a startup, a business plan matters. If you're not a startup, don't waste your money. And even if you're a startup, don't waste your money. Don't pay somebody to go do it for you. There's so many templates out there, and it's not in the volume of your business plan that counts. It's not your 50-page business plan. Actually, they don't want to read your 50-page business plan. Like, keep it low, 5 pages, get to the point. They want to be able to talk to you. Lenders want to be able to say, okay, what you wrote down, I have enough time, I've read it. And can I talk to you and make sure that what you're actually saying matches it's on paper? Because sometimes people design their business plan and they can't speak to it. So you want to be able to digest what's on the paper so you can speak to it with confidence. And then with that also comes your financial projection. A business plan without a financial projection is not complete. What is a financial projection? Is really just the document that matches how the business will make money. So you've said we're gonna have a restaurant, the best jollof rice in town. We're gonna have drive-through. We're gonna have all this. How many cars are gonna come through the door? What's the average price of your food? What's the cost of the rent? How much is it going to take? How many staff are you going to have? All this stuff will be in your financial projection. You have to break it down. And then now it would now break down eventually to tell us how much money you potentially will make. That pairs up with your business plan. If you're already in business, you don't need a business plan and a projection. You only really need it for a startup. However, if you're growing and you're expanding your business, you want to kind of put together what they call like maybe recovery plan or expansion plan. Just like a 1 or 2 pages that just say, this is what we've done in the past. This is where we're going in the future. And this is what we need the money for and how much it's going to help us. Just like write like paragraphs down of like where you've been, where you're going, and why you need the money. That will help them. And then if there's any negative gaps, like sometimes some people in their businesses, they've had some downturns. You want to explain that. And anything that is negative that will cause anybody to pause and say, oh, I don't think we should do this long. You want to explain it upfront, and let them know. And then lease agreements. If you're going into a place, you don't have to have a lease agreement if you're not in the outside location. If you're working from home and your business is from home, they don't need anything else from you from home. Stay. And then with that also comes your financial documents. So what are some key things with the financial documents? I mentioned it earlier. What's the reason why they need these things? They want to make sure that you have recent income and expenses, that they can document, that they can show like, okay, yeah, you're actually truly making this much money, and the bank statement and all these things matter. Transferring funds, separate business accounts, separate personal accounts matters, and don't commingle them. Don't use everything in the business. Don't use that to pay for McDonald's in the business account unless you're actually doing business trip. Keep those separately so that when they start doing your books, or if you ever got audited, you have good representation of what the business truly made. And there are just different resources as well, which we always share. We have a lot of resources, by the way. Just a big plug for Reset. If you're not a member, you want to be a member, because we have every month we share like information resources. We also share like funding list of like different funding opportunities as well. So more to come on that. Here is a little bit more on your legal structure. This is important because the lender will not give money to an entity where it's not formalized. So if you're individual, then you want to ensure you have a fictitious business name you've registered. You want to register whatever you are presenting yourself as. And many of you, since you've already been in business, you might just need to make sure that it's not expired. So keep track of that, because they will ask for that. And then if there are other members of the team, let's say you have a corporation, you want to make sure that you have the percentage ownership of who owns what in the company. If let's say your spouse, if it's 50-50, you have to document that as well. And if you're not sure, seek help and get support. The Secretary of State's office has that. There's some information I will share. We'll share about free business lawyers that can kind of give you some advice depending on what state you are. They don't cover all states, and they have some income requirements, but you can also try LegalZoom. LegalZoom is a good place to just kind of get some advice as well. Then we have the planning documents, which I mentioned earlier. What's the purpose of it? To verify how feasible your business is. No matter how well you talk the talk and all that, you also want to make sure you document like how the business is going to grow, how you're going to start the business and run the business. And that's what it really does for you. The business plan, don't overdo it. There are very simple templates that are out there now that just walks you through a conversation, like question and answer. And then boom, at the end, you have a business plan. And then executive summary is just like a one page that just tells us what makes a business unique. If there are 10 different businesses down the street that are very similar to yours, you've got to be able to articulate why mine is different. What makes it different that everybody comes to me, and and that helps us to say, okay, you're not going to be the first one to die. Like most lenders just want to know, are you still going to be alive? Is the business still going to be alive if things happen? And your lease agreement, this is very key. Don't go and sign a lease without having money. I know many of us walk by faith, and I walk by faith as well. But you can find a space, ask for a proposed lease agreement, and wait for the loan to be approved. And negotiate. The key thing about this is like everything is negotiable. Ask. I've seen some clients that said, oh, they said we can't do this loan, but they're like, well, I want a 1% discount. And we're like, okay, it's the end of the month. We want to make this deal. Let's just give them. So negotiate your lease terms, ask for extra months before you get started, ask for more months, try to push it for 6 months. I know sometimes they give you 3 months, but see if they can base it on your revenue starting, because all those eats into your profit. When you're new and you're starting a new business or you're renting, you might have all this great ideal of like, we're going to kick off and everybody's going to come right away, but you might have to deal with so much like construction work that will eat into your time, and you're paying, and you don't have ability to open, and you're losing money as you go along. So negotiate for rent, and even if they're going to bump up your rent more, but negotiate for a little bit of time before you have to start paying. And so what just a quick summary of what it takes. Again, I talked about the 5 C's of credit, the 5 C's of credit. Those are the things that lenders will look at when it comes to decision. The cash flow, number 1. Are you showing profitability? And if you're not, do you have a secondary source of income? That means you got a day job. Don't quit that job. Keep the job until the business is stable. Keep your credit healthy. And if you've had issues, be ready with a 1-pager that you can say, this is my explanation of the story of what I've done, and this is all the help I'm getting to make it better. Commitments, how long you've been in business. If you are an engineer, you want to go start making jollof rice. Sorry, I keep coming to this jollof rice. But if you're an engineer, you start making jollof rice, they're going to question it. They're going to go say, oh, you're very smart. Oh, yeah, we see that you have a PhD. They're going to ask you why. What's going to make you successful? What makes this? Why go into this shift? If it doesn't align with your industry experience, then you're going to have to make an explanation of why. And they might ask you to go get the job in that industry for a year to prove that you actually know what you're doing before you come back and get that. Or find a partner that has that experience. Or you go start it on your own without their money. So, and that communication. Be very clear with your lenders, or communicate. What are the things that you need from them? Timely communication, ups and downs of your business. Don't hide anything. So again, what are some of the things that keep businesses? Why do they get declined for most times? Poor credit, and without like a plan, like without coming in with a plan of like, before you show off, if the credit is really bad, like just give yourself 6 months, start a payment plan before you come in the door. So they can say, oh, okay, she already has a track record of 6 months of good payment record of payment plan. Unprofitable, the business is not profitable and it hasn't been profitable for years. Well, is it because you just don't want to pay taxes that you're showing unprofitable, or is it really not profitable? So you have to explain that. Or you just don't have good communication of the vision. You just can't tell, like they don't believe you. If they don't believe what you're saying, it's not going to fly. Or the numbers are not consistent. Like is your cousin that's helping you do those books and they're just not making sense. Like unrealistic information, all those things, and just like the management skills are lacking. Those things are the things that could get a deal declined. So you want to just double check your deals. So this look like it's something that's going to fly, or maybe I should rethink and work on those areas to make it stronger. So that concludes on our debt financing. Before I hop into the equity one, any questions on this section that I just shared?
So I do not have any questions in the chat room yet.
Okay.
Waiting to see if anyone has questions now.
Okay, great. So continuously, I just want to remind us all that some of this information, to kind of continue to build on it, we'll really encourage you to join as a member to reset. It really helps because the content of this is just a little bit of tips on the iceberg, but for you to be able to kind of go back and listen to this, it would really be of good service to just kind of digest it much better. So I'm going to proceed with the equity side of it. And before I kind of jump into this piece, when it comes to equity finance, there's so many ways that you can think about it. You can look at it from businesses. Equity is really when an investor decides that they have a pool of money and they want to invest it into a business with a return. And with the return they're looking for, and also they want a piece of the business and they want control to some degree. So when you think about equity, you have to also think, you have to have a personal conversation with yourself. Am I willing to allow people to intrude into my vision? Are they going to come in as a helper or a distractor? Because with lenders not going to care. They're just going to give you the money, and just as long as you're paying them, you can go and do your thing. They're not going to be poking into your business. They might ask you for like documents to just make sure business is on track, but they're not going to say, oh, wait, do you want to hire that person? I got to see all the details of that person. No. But an equity partner, because now they become a partner, they'll have shareholding, will want to know more details. They want to know how much salary you're paying yourself, when you're going on vacation. You have to report to them a lot more things. And every investor is different. Some investors are much more lenient. And so you also want to be careful. It's like a marriage. You go into that and you're locked in. Just like partnership is like a marriage, also equity is also like a marriage. So on the far left is friends and family. Believe it or not, when you borrow from friends and family, they might not have equity share in it, but they're watching you. If you borrow money and then you're going around, you're splashing, you're having the next birthday party, and you have not paid them a dime, trust me, they will kind of start knocking and say, come, tell us more details about what's going on with this business. They'll start calling you to question. So and also just there's some uneasiness sometimes what people feel. And then there's crowdfunding. I'll share more about that. And there's angel investor and venture capitalists. So on the far left, they're a bit more easier, less documentation. You have a little bit more negotiating power and less money. On the right-hand side, it's a little bit more difficult, more money. And so it kind of gives you a different kind of approach around it. But it's helpful for us to be aware. And we kind of go into some of this. Friends and family, we all know it. You know how that works. Every family is different, every friend is different, so you can proceed as you desire. When it comes to other kind of forms of equity, keep in mind that there's certain industries that have more option available to them to be able to participate in the equity structure. And those are industries that have fast growth. If you can think of your business as a fast growth business, that 10x of it, you can grow it and they can make the money in like 3-5 years. Can you start, and convert it into start $1 million and go into 10 million within 3-5 years? Like how quickly can you move that? And then you also have to have a certain mindset. So a lot of times tech industry tends to fit into this a lot more. A lot of times you also have what I call products that are brands, like products that can be converted to brands. Like you have your some people have like special foods like sauces that could be converted into brand, or skincare that could be converted into a brand. And you really have to have that marketing mindset or walk through a team that helps you build it into a brand, not just a business. You're really talking about a brand. Those are what gets the attention of equity partners. So if your business is in that, but if you're selling to like government, you're selling to certain places, it doesn't really get the attention as much. They're looking for that. Think about it, tech, brand products, or service. It can be service product, but it has to have a wide network of potential users. Like, you're not just talking about like, just, okay, people around my local footprint. They have to have a wider network that you can kind of tap into. On the first end is a crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is really a great one that's actually, I find, that's very underutilized. I can give you an example of how I saw some clients use this. I had a client that makes sauce. She made this really, really good spicy sauce. And when she was starting this, she didn't want to, she was kind of hesitant about borrowing. But what she had was, she started doing farmers market and had a wide network of customers that loved her product. And she was ready to scale, but she didn't have the capital to scale. So she started this crowdfunding one, because one thing with crowdfunding is that you need to have great number of supporters, people that love your products and people are ready to pay for it. So she did this the crowdfunding, and what it was pretty much pre-orders, and with the extra price. And she was able to raise $100,000 with that crowdfunding, with no money. Like, she just had to pay for like the videos and things like that, put it on the platform. People will get people to like come in and buy something that they will not get for another 6 months. So people paid for like $100, $200 for the items that they're not going to get for another 6 months. What she did was, they took that money, went to the bank. I have $100,000 now. Can you give me a line of credit of this much money? I have this much orders to place. Took that, then put our order in, and was able to kind of kick off the business in another spin. So crowdfunding is a very effective tool that you can use, but you have to use it strategically, and you have to know if you have a wide network. It works well when you're trying to do product-based items, that you have followers, you already have great followers and supporters that you can utilize for it. And there's some platforms that are very effective for it. I also remember a client that also had she had a wine shop that she was trying to launch. She hadn't launched that business for like 3 years, but she got people to become wine club, to join the wine club, and to invest into it. So when she opens, that they can come in once a month to come and drink wine. And she was able to raise about $400,000 just from that. Well, how did she do it? She had a network of rich friends, not just rich friends, but people that just were connected. She had a wide network of people and customers that were interested in it. So that's what crowdfunding. Angel investors, these are people that at the front end, you have like what they call the seed money, that they're ready to give you money for something unique, innovative, and scalable. Keep that in mind. Unique, innovative, and scalable. So you have to think about your products or your services. Is it unique? Is it innovative? And is it scalable? That means, can I take it 10 times how in a quick time, and they can get their money back? And be ready to give up some control. You might be lucky that some angel investors might be like, oh, I don't need to have much control. But a lot of times angel investors like to get in it. And you also might want them to get involved. Maybe they have an expertise that you want them to help you. Think about Shark Tank. That's like your angel investor. And then the last is the venture capital. Venture capital is like the top tier level. They are like where they take you, you're talking about like higher dollars amount in the millions, and they're ready to give you multiple rounds of it. And this is where the tech companies get those funds. And at some point, they're able to take the business public. They're able to take that business when they say go public, that means it's now publicly traded. And for them, what they're looking for is how they can exit with the largest amount of like return. And so they would only touch businesses that can give them a major return back, and within a short period of time. And so they win some, they lose some. They know sometimes not everything goes through, but most of all these tech companies started with this kind of space. Another option is sometimes they don't fully get bought out. There's some other like options that are out there, like private equity groups. Sometimes they get sold to, like, for example, I had a client that's being quoted by Pepsi. They have a coffee business, and Pepsi wants to buy them, to acquire them as part of their line of business. So sometimes you might not go public, but you could be sold to a major, a much, much bigger entity. And so investors looking at this, okay, I see an exit for you, like the way they're going to make money out of it. So that being said, this is kind of the framework around some of the equity options that are out there. Again, when it comes to preparing a compelling package, just like as a recap of some of the things that we've said, before I actually go into this, let me share about grants. I know some of you might have questions about grants. I just want to kind of let you know that grants are very, they were very much available during the pandemic. But right now, I wouldn't count on using grants as your main source of financing. I wouldn't discourage it if you think you have opportunity for it, but they're very competitive and they're not reliable as a consistent means of funding your business. So you want to kind of take a look and see if there are alternative options. We get a list of grant options, but many of them are national. And they will say you have about 500,000 businesses applying for 4 spots. Well, you have to have something compelling that stands out that you know could get their attention. So you take that time and fill out all their forms and send all those documents out. So just being aware of that. But there are some industries that might have grant opportunities. I just want to name some of those industries. If you're in the education industry or childcare industry or science industry, you might have access to certain grants. And you can go to grants.gov and search for grant opportunities that could fit your business. So finally, just kind of wrapping this up, a reminder, preparing a business plan if you're a startup, executive summary if you're an existing business, know your business and know your number. Make sure your taxes are showing as much as you actually made. Keep good records, do not commingle, monitor your credit, prioritize your borrowing needs, and use a designated account for your business purchases. So those best practices was what makes you look like, okay, you look clean. You know, you might not be perfect, but at least you're trying to do things right. You know, I was just talking to a person that referred somebody yesterday, had a barbershop for like 20 years, never filed taxes in his life, and like cut hair for like LeBron and all these people. And I'm wondering, wow. And now he has opportunity to expand the business, but he has no track record to be able to borrow from. So he has to start up from ground level 1. So let's keep that, create a track record for all that you're doing. So we're wrapped up now, and we'd love to take any other questions you have at this time.
Thank you so much, Pastor Titi. We had some questions come in. The first one I have on the chat box is, please, is the interest rate on line of credit based on whether the fund is drawn or used or not?
Pastor Titi, we've lost your audio.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. Thank you for letting me know. No, it's not set based on what is drawn or used. It's set at the time of what your credit allows you to qualify for. So if it's a business line of credit, and you get that, they're looking at 2 things. They're looking at your business credit history. They're also but they're looking more at your personal credit history to give you that. Line of credit.
So just to clarify, I think my understanding of the question is that you don't pay interest unless you draw it down, right? So the fact that you have a line of credit, you don't actually pay interest on that line of credit.
Oh, okay, that's the question. Okay, I was thinking, yes, you don't pay unless you just pay like an annual fee of just keeping it open. You don't pay unless you draw it down. Yeah.
I think we have more questions.
Yes, we do. Another question is, can taking business loan from PayPal be the last option because of their very high interest rates?
Can it be the last option? That's what I was saying, that it shouldn't be your first option. If you're going to go there, they have to have a plan of how you have some money, business that is actually generating you a significant amount of return to justify borrowing from there. Like sometimes people are just stuck and they don't feel like they have an option, you know, but that should be the last resort. Like I would even like go borrow from friends than borrow from that, because what happens is that you can't exit out of it. Like they've already pre-calculated their interest. And if you decide to pay that money back, you pay every part of that interest that because they lent you that money with the plan that they want to make all the interest from it. So if you try to pay it off early, you don't really save anything. So that's the downside of it. and it's just quite expensive.
Oh, wow. Okay. Another question is, who charges more between institutional lender or private stroke individual lender?
Private would always charge more. If you're talking about like hard money lenders, there's private lenders that are out there. They have less requirement. They might overlook credit, but they would ask you for they'll ask for some assets to back it up. And they would charge more.
Okay, thank you. This person is asking if our organization Reset can help with filing 501c, and if we can provide recommendation.
501c would be a nonprofit status. We do not, because Reset is designed for profit, but we can recommend some people in the network that I believe could help you with that. So you can reach out to our email. We'll drop the email in the chat.
Yeah, and a subtle or not so subtle reminder is you need to be a part of Reset. You need to be a member to access all of this information if you need assistance with this. So moving on, another question we got was, for startups, what should be given a priority? I think this was at the beginning, one of the first slides presented, business plan or sourcing capital. Yeah, so first is you can be doing both simultaneously. Just finding out who are the particular lenders that are out there that might finance your loan. And depending on the business, if it's a very unique business, it's not like a common industry, then you might want to start early. But if it's something that's like, it's common, it's out there, it's familiar, because lenders go by what's familiar to them. If they don't understand that industry, they would question you, and you feel like, man, nobody wants to give me a loan because they just don't understand it. It's not familiar to them. So the familiarity matters to find the right lender that would listen. And so I would say you can do both simultaneously, spend time developing your business plan, but your conversations with those lenders, when you start going deep in it, they want to know more for the business plan, how it's going to work out. But they also want to know what you've got going on personally, income-wise, to keep the business going while you start it. Okay, thank you. Another question. Does Reset, this person says, thank you for a great presentation. Does Reset have some sort of personal mentoring or one-on-one for a business startup? For example, providing leads or partnerships and models, etc. Yeah, we're going to be sharing our next an announcement of some upcoming seminars as well on startups. So we're going to do something on series on startups. But as far as personal mentoring, think about Reset as two things. We function as a network. So we're trying to build a cohesive network of people, businesses that have like-minded, either by their ethnic background or their cultural background, and also by their spiritual background as well. And then we're also trying to be a navigator. We can't be all things to all people, but we can navigate you to the right places. And so what I can say is that we're going to give you a next step that will help you navigate to the right next, like whatever might be your question and your support. Okay. So next question. How risky is online lenders due to online fraudulent acts? Oh, very risky. Yeah, I think you mentioned that in the first slide. I've refinanced I've seen so many refinance of it. Even some of them will tell you. I would just say be careful as you go and get those. If you need to get those, even the ones that seem to be like reputable, like QuickBooks and PayPal. Some of them have subsidiaries that they would like that they just kind of connect to them, and so it's yeah. So I would just say. Just be mindful if you're going into if you've tried it before, try with a small dollar amount and see how quickly you can pay it off. So okay, and I think this will be the last question before we move to the next to our announcements, which hopefully will address some of the other questions that some of us might have. Is taking equity from mortgage a wise idea to source capital for a startup? Yeah, that's a good question. I think that is a loaded question that sometimes has to be balanced with stage of life, with other competing projects you might be having and other reserves that you have. They always say use other people's money, but
but maybe you have a major opportunity and you can't get the loan started and you decide to kind of use that capital from getting the mortgage. I would recommend, if that's the only property that one has, and later on in stage of life, get a business loan. And also, it also depends on the development. If you can get a business loan that's standalone, that doesn't require your property to be pledged, do that. But if it's still going to require property to be pledged, then going through the mortgage side and getting what you need. And if it's cheaper interest rate and it's fixed interest rate, then yeah, I've seen that work. I've also seen 401k. I would probably go with the 401k first before I do mortgage. Why? Because that mortgage is appreciating. It's also like a stable place for a family. And if something were to happen, it could really disrupt like just how you can just rebalance and regroup versus like a 401k, if you have sufficient amount in it, it still stays there. You just have to repay it over time. So.
Okay. Thank you. So we'll be moving on to our next presentation, and this, sorry, we have just one more. I think there's room for just last one. Does Reset offer consulting for new business?
So yeah, great question. Like I said, we are part of what we're doing is we're having a navigation support. So we'll give you the next steps of, if you have a question, we have a team that can kind of talk to you, or somebody that can chat with you, get a better understanding of what your needs are. Depending on what the needs are, if it's something that is solvable internally, we would reach out and solve. If it's not, then we will get you to the right support center. We're in this age where technology and resources are growing, and we would think of it of like a global network of like resources and a network. So whether that network is directly from our own, like it's like a consultant within us, or because of capacity, is of the volume of people that's connected with Redeem, and we know that we can't serve everybody. So we've created really intentionally to be as a navigation support. So, but we would have classes and we would have you connecting and a live person that you can talk to that can at least listen to you. And if something is not working out, wherever we refer you to, you can always reach out back to us as well. And so you'll have guidance, you have support. And on the startup stuff, there's a startup class that we'll be sharing with you guys as you kind of pay attention to our newsletter coming soon.
Thank you so much, Pastor. This has been very informative. And hopefully we have all learned something on not just something, on how to access capital for our businesses and the best way to present ourselves so that we don't get denials. Okay, so we're moving on to announcements now, and I'll be moving on to this slide. A lot of us in the chat box were making a lot of inquiry on how to become a Reset member. I kept posting the links repeatedly, so you could click that link, fill the form. Once you do, that automatically makes you a Reset member. And if you're also very tech savvy, you can scan the QR code right on your screen right now, and it will take you to the same form. And this affords you the opportunity to become a Reset member. I think Pastor Yinka would speak more on this.
Okay, I'll take this part and now pass it on to Pastor Yinka. Thank you so much. So I guess what's next steps? Many of you have been asking about it. So first is you have to first become a Reset member. So if you can just take your phone and scan that code, just take a picture of it, like holding it, or you can click on the chat into the link that's already been created. So that's the first step if you're not yet a member. Then we are also going to have the next page. We're going to have a financing interest form that you would have people that have interest in like getting more support around getting capital. We will have you fill out that separate form that helps us to know to what degree kind of help you will need and the right support that needs to be given to you. And then once completed, you will also part of it is it helps us to navigate you to the right place of help. We would have either booking time or connections of emails to get to you. We will also have some other, if you can go to the next screen, please. So that's for you to become a Reset member. There's a question here. Is this membership signing different from the ones you signed up for today? No, what you signed up for today was just to get into the class. It was just like your name and phone number, but if you open it up, you'll be able to tell if you filled it out before. And even if you fill it out again, it doesn't hurt. We can just update update it in our system. And then we'll have, yeah, go ahead, Sayika.
Are you good to the next slide?
And this is the one that you scan for the financing. So as like a follow-up for those that are looking for financing support and kind of need some help on figuring out what the right kind of next step for capital, this is where you scan. So complete that form that allows you to be able to get some help on it. See if I can drop that in. And that is that if that form is different from the other one that you just the membership one. I'll drop it in the chat.
We're just giving people more time to scan the QR code here, while the link will be posted also in the chat.
Yeah, I just posted the one for the finance one in the chat.
Yes.
Put it. All right.
So as people do that, I think we can begin to round up. And first of all, I just want to thank Pastor Titi really for a wonderful presentation. It's really been informative. So we really want to thank you. The time you've taken, obviously, to prepare this, and we can see your passion, for this. And I was exchanging, messages with Pastor Leke, and we recognize your passion for this. And we certainly are blessed to have, Pastor Titi, not just in this mission, but also in Reseed and in the Redeem Mission as well. Also want to really appreciate you, Pastor Titi. I also want to thank our administrator, Stashebi, who has helped us move the program along, and she really does a lot of the back end work. So really thank you. And I also want to thank everybody who has attended today. A lot of you have asked about next steps, and really that's what's crucial, because we've spent about 2 hours here, or 2.5 hours, and it's great. But what's the next step? How many people are going to take the next step? Because it's one of two things. Either this is just great information, we pack it away, and then it's of no use to us, or we actually take a next step. And that next step is either you become a Reseed member, because that's the first step to really gaining access to the resources, to the information, to the network. Become a member. Being a member of Reseed is becoming part of a network, and that network gives you access to so much more beyond what we can present to you in a 1 hour, 2 hour webinar. There's a lot more, and really becoming a member also indicates your seriousness, right? It allows us to engage with you. And then so the first step is to become a member. And then the next step is to actually then engage the membership. So like the follow-up for this webinar, for example, if you're interested in getting more in-depth into financing, then obviously scan that code, fill that form, so that you can actually do the follow-up, because the follow-up is very important. You can do the follow-up, and we can provide you with more information. We can refer you to the right resources, to the right networks. We will not refer you to anybody that's going to con you. Anyone that Reseed refers you to are people or organizations that are tested, and Reseed is really standing behind. So it's very important that next step engagement. And then obviously what's next? We have upcoming webinars on our agenda. Our plan is to present seminars almost bi-monthly. And so we have a slate of webinars that are coming up. The next one that we're looking at is real estate investment, which is a great investment tool. That's one I'm personally looking forward to. And a business startup series. Pastor Titi talked a lot here about businesses, how you position your businesses, what sort of structure to use, And those are even sometimes as important as the other issues like credit and cash flow, because if you can have the best ideas, you can even have money coming in, but if the structure is not right, nobody's going to invest in you. So that's also a very important, issue that we're going to be looking at. And then tax strategies for small businesses. Talk about tax, about tax strategies, for example, today, about how your tax can actually impact how much financing you can get. So for small businesses, what are the best tax strategies for you? Digitizing your business with AI tools. Everybody's talking about AI, and a lot of it is just hype. I mean, what are the actual, steps and advantages that you can use, or how you can really leverage AI, even for your small business, and then obviously business ethics, very important. And so we have this whole slate of webinars that are coming up. The best way for you to stay informed is to become a member. As a membership, you get our newsletter, you get updates, you get reminders, and you really have all these tools available to you. Membership is currently complimentary right now. Again, as I said at the beginning, membership is free, it's complimentary. There's going to come a time when membership is not going to be free anymore, because these resources are valuable resources. There's value, for example, what has been presented today, there's a lot of value in it. And so there's going to come a time when it's not free. Right now it's free, take advantage of it, right? Take advantage of it, leverage, all the resources that are out there, watch out for our newsletter, and engage. Having a resource like Receive without engaging within is just really, it's like just, having opportunity and misusing it. So engage. If you have questions, send them to the email, get on, social media channels, engage. And that's the best way to, get the most and the best out of your membership or research. So want to thank all of you again for joining this webinar, and please be on the lookout for more information. And we look forward as well to hearing from you. We look forward to engaging with you, and we look forward to greater partnership. There's so much more that time will not permit us to talk about, about today. We have our professional support groups, people who are, experts in the different areas, and maybe your business area is restaurants, maybe your business area is healthcare. We have professional support groups where you can actually, I think somebody asked about mentoring, where you can actually partner you with, somebody in that area who can actually, guide you in your journey in that business. That's available in the network. So there's so much that to offer in the Reset Network. You'll be doing yourself a disservice if you don't become a member of the network, and even a greater disservice if you do not take advantage of what's available in the network. So unless there's anything else, Pastor Titi, Shebi, anything else to share before we close?
I think that's it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's it. Just please make sure you use the link and become a Reset member, like Pastor Yinka has said. Very, very important.
Yeah, and drop your feedback for us as well. You can email us or drop it in the chat. What was most helpful? What would you love to hear more about? Great.
Yeah, we'll appreciate your feedback. Drop us an email, feedback about the format, feedback about the time, feedback about the topic. Is there a topic that you want Reset to address? Drop us an email. We'll take a look at it and we'll respond to it. That's very important. So thank you all. We really, really appreciate you taking the time, 2.5 hours out of your day. We know it's precious. We appreciate, and we look forward to continuing the engagement with you online in our channels. God bless you. Thank you for coming.
Excuse me, 1 minute. I find it difficult to get the link. Can you please repost that link? Because the code that is supposed to be scanned, I'm using my phone, so I'm unable to scan it.
Yeah, if you look at the chat, we will post it again, but it's posted. So if you look at the chat right now, the link is posted. And we'll keep the platform open for a few minutes just to allow the people to be able to click, even though we've ended, but we'll just keep it open for a few minutes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Excuse me, sir. Is it possible you send it to our email?
Well, we need to have your email first of all. So for us to send you to anything to your email, you have to become a member.
Okay.
But if you click on this, on the links that we have there, it will take you to the membership page where you can sign up. You can put your email, and then we'll be able to contact you.
Okay. Thank you so much.
I think we can close it down, Sister Shebi. So thank you all.
Thank you very much for your time. We appreciate what you've passed on us. Thank you very much. Look forward to getting more from you.
Amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Hear from you. Okay.
Okay. God
So
bless
I
you.
will be closing the Zoom, ending the Zoom call now.